Hello and welcome back to Something Z, and welcome to If Naruto is Raised by Kakashi Part 6. Last time on the What Ifs, the final part of the Chunin exams took place, with Naruto winning his match against Neji. Then shortly afterwards, Sasuke's match took place, and before he could finish, the Konoha Crush began. And during the invasion, Naruto fought Gaara and the Shukaku, with him winning thanks to the help of Gamabunta. Then after a couple days, the Leaf held a funeral for the third Hokage. Okay, so now that's out of the way, let's jump into the video in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we begin this what if sometime after the third Hokage's funeral, and currently the elders of the village are having a meeting with Jiraiya, and they're asking him to become the next Hokage. But he kept on refusing. But the elders kept on pestering him because he was the strongest person in the village, and because he was the last Sannin to have a connection to the village. And after some time, Jiraiya was able to think about a replacement for him that would fit the role better, which was Tsunade. And hearing this, the elders agreed to not make Jiraiya the Hokage. And because they don't know where she is, they gave a mission to Jiraiya to find her. And hearing this, Jiraiya got up. But when he was standing up, he asked if he was allowed to bring a certain yellow-haired Genin. Okay, so now we skip a couple minutes. And eventually, Jiraiya found Naruto walking down a road after he completed his missions for the day. And when Jiraiya got to Naruto, he asked him if he wanted to go on a mission with him to find someone. And hearing this, Naruto almost immediately declined, and he began to walk off. But before Naruto was out of earshot, Jiraiya just shrugged and he said that he'll teach the Rasengan to Sasuke instead. And hearing this, Naruto turned his head, because even if Naruto hasn't seen the Rasengan, Kakashi has told him stories about the jutsu his dad created. And hearing this, Naruto shouted to meet him at the front gates. Then he ran home as fast as he could. Okay, so now we skip around half an hour, and the two are currently at the gates. And when Naruto gets there, Naruto immediately asks when will he learn the Rasengan. And smirking, Jiraiya tells him when the time is right. Then once he said that, the two began their journey. So after an hour of walking, the two make it to a nearby town. And when they get there, Jiraiya immediately got distracted by a woman. So he gave Naruto the keys to their hotel room, and he began to wander off. So seeing this, Naruto went to the hotel room and he began to rest. But after some time, Naruto heard a knock on the door, so he immediately got up and began to open it. But when he opened it, instead of seeing Jiraiya, he saw two guys in black robes with red cloud designs. But what caught Naruto's eye the most was the fact that one of the guys had red eyes that were similar to the Sharingan. And seeing this, Naruto immediately drew his sword. But before anyone could do anything, Sasuke appeared at the end of the hallway. And when he appeared, he put lightning nature chakra into his hands. And when the Chidori was formed, he ran at the guy with red eyes. But to Naruto and Sasuke's surprise, he got easily stopped and pinned against the wall. And seeing this, Naruto immediately put his hand to the ground, creating a poof of smoke. And when it was gone, Gamuto appeared. And when he saw Kisame, the two began to fight. And seeing this, Naruto ran to try to help Sasuke. And with Kisame being distracted, he was unable to follow after Naruto. So Naruto was able to get to Itachi. But when he tried to save Sasuke, he was easily pushed away, with him slamming against a wall. And when Naruto hit the floor, Itachi pulled out a kunai and he was about to throw it at Naruto. But before he was able to throw it, Jiraiya appeared, and he covered the entire hotel hallway in a toad's esophagus, which absorbed Naruto and Sasuke, protecting them. And seeing this, Itachi used Amaterasu and he created a small hole using the flames. And when the hole was big enough, Kisame and Itachi ran through, and after a couple seconds they were gone. Then after a couple minutes, Guy appears, and he took Sasuke back to the Leaf in order to get healed up. Okay, so now we skip another hour, and the two are now in another town. And when they get there, Jiraiya took Naruto's wallet, and he gave Naruto some of his money. And he told him to go enjoy the stalls around the town, while he goes to look for any more clues about Tsunade. Then after around half an hour, Naruto was done. So he grabbed two octopi on sticks, and he began to look for Jiraiya. But after a couple minutes, he saw Jiraiya in a brothel surrounded by women. And when Naruto walked closer, he saw that on a nearby table, he saw his wallet was laying there empty. And seeing this, Naruto got angry and he began to thrash around. But when he did, two people began to walk into the room. And when they did, one of the men got too close, so Naruto hit his suit with the octopi, staining the suit. And seeing this, the two men got mad and they began to yell at Naruto. And before the guy in the stained suit could punch Naruto, Jiraiya appeared between the two. And when he appeared, he told Naruto to pay attention. And when Naruto looked into Jiraiya's hand, he saw that in his hand there was a ball of pure chakra that was beginning to spin. And seeing this, Naruto immediately recognized it as the Rasengan. And before the guy could move, Jiraiya hit the guy with it. And when it made contact, the guy got flung to the other side of the road, with him crashing into a balloon stand. And when the guy crashed, Jiraiya went to the stand and he bought all of the balloons that were still intact. Then once Jiraiya got all of the balloons, Jiraiya and Naruto walked out of the village and into a nearby forest. And when they were in the forest, Jiraiya gave Naruto a water balloon, and he told Naruto that he will finally teach him the Rasengan, with the first step being rotation. So he told Naruto that he will have to pop the balloon with solely his chakra, by making the water in the balloon spin. And once Jiraiya was done explaining that, Naruto began to train. Okay, so now we skip a couple days, and Naruto by this point has made some progress with the first step, with him being able to make the balloon bounce around. But other than that, he wasn't able to pop it. So it's the morning of the fourth day, and when Naruto went to go eat breakfast, he accidentally dropped a water balloon he had on him, and when he noticed, the cat began to play with it. So seeing this, Naruto began to get up to try to get it back. But before he was actually able to get to it, it popped. And seeing this, Naruto dropped the cat under the balloon, and he began to watch the cat to see how it did it the first time. And when the cat popped the balloon again, Naruto ran into the woods and he began to train again using what he just saw. and after multiple hours, Naruto was able to make the balloon pop, with him being able to channel all of his chakra into one of his hands. And when Jiraiya saw that Naruto was able to pop the balloon, he gave Naruto a rubber ball, and he told Naruto that he would have to do the same thing, but because of the rubber ball, it's harder to pop. And once Naruto was given the ball, he began to train. Okay, so now we skip around 2 weeks, and by this point, Naruto has made some progress, but it wasn't enough to actually do anything. But one night, while he was doing his last attempt for the night, he put all of his chakra into his hand, while trying to make it pop. And with that, he was able to create a hole which wasn't enough to make it actually pop, but it was enough to make it deflate. And seeing this, Naruto realized that it must be how he's releasing the chakra, because this whole time he's just been releasing it out of his hand. But if he had a focus point that would make the chakra more powerful from the precision, then he would have a higher success rate. And with that, Naruto began to train with him focusing on the very center of his hand. Then after around 3 days, Jiraiya saw that Naruto was on the brink of passing the second step. So one day, he told Naruto to give him his hand, and when he looked, he was able to see where he had been focusing his chakra, because that was the part of his hand that was the most red. Then he drew a spiral on Naruto's hand where the red part was, and he told Naruto to spin his chakra in that direction. And when Naruto heard this, he made 5 shadow clones and he began to practice with all 6 of himself. And after around 2 more days, one of the Narutos using the remaining parts of his chakra was able to pop the rubber ball. And when it popped, all of the Narutos besides the original got destroyed. And when Jiraiya saw this, he congratulated Naruto on being able to pass from the second stage. Then Jiraiya gave Naruto another balloon, and he told him that he was almost done, and that the final step was to combine the things he learned from the previous steps, which were power and rotation. But now he has to make it stable, and when Naruto was ready, he made 20 shadow clones, and he began to practice, with him practicing the rest of that day, and all of the day after. But on the second day, when Naruto woke up, his hands were still in pain, because he had been forcing so much chakra out of his hands. And when Jiraiya noticed that Naruto was awake, he told him to get packed up again, and that he just got some information about Tsunade's last known location, so they need to hurry. And once Naruto was ready, the two left, and they began to walk into a nearby town. And while they were traveling, Naruto kept on training. But because they were moving, Naruto did it solely by himself. Okay, so now we skip to that night, and the two weren't able to find Tsunade. But on the bright side, with Naruto training using the clones prior, Naruto was further ahead into his training, so Naruto can make a stable Rasengan for a bit of time, with it being able to last for 5 seconds. But after that, it would either disappear or explode, destroying the balloon. So with that, it was still imperfect. Anyways, when the two were done looking at locations Jiraiya had, the two decided to go for dinner, so they went to a nearby restaurant. And when they walked into the restaurant, Jiraiya recognized a blonde-haired woman at the back of the diner, so he told Naruto to follow him, and the two began to walk to her table. And when the two got to the table, they sat across from Tsunade and Shizune, and they began to talk about how Tsunade was chosen to be the next Hokage. But after Jiraiya told her this, she declined the offer, and she said that whoever would choose to be the Hokage was an idiot. And when Naruto hears this, he gets mad, and after some yelling between the two, Naruto challenged Tsunade to a fight, which she accepted. So the two then walked out of the restaurant, with the two being a couple feet apart. And when Naruto was ready, he threw a kunai at Tsunade, but she was able to dodge it with ease. Then Naruto ran at her and he tried to go in for a kick. But before he was able to land it, Tsunade was able to move out of the way again. And with Naruto being open for an attack, Tsunade flicked Naruto in the forehead. And with just that, Naruto was sent back flying to where he began. And when he got back up, he realized that he needed to use Rasengan, or he wouldn't stand a chance. So he then began to focus chakra into his right hand, and after a couple seconds, a sphere of chakra appeared in his hand. Then once it stopped growing in size, Naruto began to run at Tsunade as fast as he could, and before he got to her, he tried to jump at her. But seeing this, Tsunade took a couple steps to the side, then she raised one of her legs, and before Naruto passed her, she kicked him down, making him turn into a crater, with the Rasengan hitting the ground as well, making it so there was a crater, then another smaller crater inside. And while Naruto was getting back up, Tsunade was yelling and arguing with Jiraiya about teaching Naruto the Rasengan, and she was saying that he will never truly master it. And hearing this, Naruto began to argue with Tsunade again. Then after some time, Tsunade made a deal with Naruto, which was if he could master it in the span of a week, then she would give him her necklace that was once owned by the first Hokage. And hearing this, Naruto accepts the deal, so he then immediately ran into the forest to begin training. Okay, so now we skip to the night before the deadline, and Naruto still hasn't been able to master the Rasengan, with him increasing the time limit to 25 seconds. And that night, for his final attempt, Naruto put all of his chakra into one of his hands to try to make a Rasengan. Then once it was formed, Naruto hit a tree with it. But once the Rasengan disappeared, Naruto passed out. And when Naruto woke up, he found himself not in the woods or in his hotel room, but in a new room he's never seen before. And when Naruto looked around the room, he eventually saw a worried Shizune muttering to herself. But after a couple seconds, she noticed the awake Naruto. And seeing him, she was surprised that he was awake, because when she examined him, she believed that he would be knocked out for at least a couple days. But before Naruto could explain himself, Shizune moved on, and she told Naruto to follow her. Then she immediately opened a window and she was about to jump through. But before she was able to, a kunai flew past her, and when it stuck to a nearby wall, Shizune looked to where it came from. And when she does, she sees a drugged up Jiraiya. And after a bit of talking, she tells the two two of them about a deal between Tsunade and Orochimaru, and she tells them to follow her to where the deal is taking place. So now we skip to when the three get there, and when they get there, they see Kabuto standing above Tsunade about to put her out of commission. But before he does, Naruto and Shizune ran at Kabuto, and when Naruto got to Kabuto, he began to try to fight him using a sword. But because he has been weakened from his continuous training, he's slower and sloppier than he would normally be. So even though it was a 2 against 1, it was still hard. Then after some fighting, Kabuto ran over to Orochimaru, and using his own blood, Kabuto used a seal on Orochimaru's arm to use the summoning jutsu. Then after some time, a poof of smoke appeared, and when it was gone, the two were on a twin-headed snake. And seeing this, Naruto and Jiraiya tried to summon Gamabunta, but instead the two summoned two small toads, with some being Gamakichi and a new toad by the name of Gamatatsu. Then after Naruto summoned the toad, he ran back to his fight between Shizune and Kabuto, but after a couple minutes, he and Shizune were on the ground beaten up, while Kabuto was still standing, with there being cuts across his body, and with the kunai in his hand, he was about to try to stab Tsunade. But before the blade hit, Naruto got back up, and he was able to grab the kunai by the blade, stopping the attack. And seeing this, Kabuto tried to let go to get away, but Naruto, while being stabbed by the kunai, held onto Kabuto's hand. And with his free hand, Naruto began to focus. Then after a couple seconds, he was able to make a perfect Rasengan. Then once he was fully formed, he hit Kabuto in the gut with it. And with that, Kabuto was sent flying. But before he was out of range, Kabuto was able to tear the muscles around Naruto's heart, making it so Naruto passed out and he began to die. But before he could die, Tsunade was able to heal him, so he was only knocked out. And shortly after Naruto got knocked out, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru, with the help of a now awake Kabuto, summoned their creatures. And after a bit of fighting between the three, Orochimaru and Kabuto decided that the best option was to escape. Okay, so now we skip a couple days, and when Naruto woke up, he found a necklace on him, and he found out that Tsunade has accepted the role as Hokage. Then once Naruto was fully rested and healed up, the group began their travel to the Leaf. And a couple days later, they were able to make it. And when they get there, Tsunade goes to see Lee, Sasuke, and Kakashi just like in the canon. So now we skip a couple days after Tsunade gets back to Leaf, and Naruto and Sakura were hanging out in Sasuke's hotel room. But while the three were hanging out, Sasuke was in his mind, and he was getting madder and madder about the fact that Naruto keeps on getting stronger at a faster rate than him. And after some time, he lashes out at Sakura, and with that, Naruto and Sasuke began to argue. Then after some time, Sasuke challenged Naruto to a fight, which he accepted. So the three began to walk to the roof of the hospital. And once they got to the roof, the fight began, with Sasuke using the Sharingan while Naruto used a sword, but he used the blunt side because he didn't really want to hurt him. Then after a bit of fighting, the two decided to go for one final clash. So Sasuke began to create Chidori while Naruto created Rasengan. Then once the two jutsus were formed, the two Genin ran at each other. But before they could collide, Kakashi appeared in between the two of them, and he grabbed the two of them by the wrists. And once he got a good grip, he threw the two of them in different directions, with them both hitting water towers. And after a bit of talking, Naruto and Sakura leave the hospital, while Kakashi has a talk about not attacking his teammates with Sasuke. But even after the talk, Sasuke was still mad about how he isn't getting any stronger. And later that night, Sasuke gets a visit from the Sound 4, and after a bit of talking, he decides to go with them to get stronger. Then once Sasuke agreed, the Sound 4 left, and they waited for him at the front gates. And when Sasuke was done getting ready, he began to walk to the gates, with him going through the park. But while he was walking through the park, he gets stopped by Sakura, who pleads for him not to go. But after seeing that wasn't working, Sakura began to beg for him to take her with him. But after a couple tears, Sasuke appeared behind Sakura, and he knocked her out. Then once he placed her on a nearby bench, Sasuke continued to walk to the front gates, eventually meeting up with the Sound 4. And when he met up with them, they began to run to Orochimaru's lair. Okay, so now he skips that morning when the sun was rising. And eventually, two shinobi were walking through the park. And while they were walking, they noticed and woke up Sakura. And when they woke her up, they learned about what happened with Sasuke. And after a bit of time, the same group was at the front gates. And when they were ready, they left. So all the fights will be the exact same. This includes the matches with Lee and the Sand Shinobi. So now Naruto just got to the Valley of the End, and waiting for him was Sasuke. And when Naruto caught up to Sasuke, Naruto began to yell at Sasuke, asking him why has he done this, and whether or not he knows what happened to their friends because of what he's done. And Naruto was going to keep on shouting at him, but Sasuke cut him off. And he told him that no matter what he told him, he wouldn't be returning to the village, and that if he really wanted him back, he would have to drag him back. So hearing this, Naruto began to unsheath his sword, and while Naruto was doing this, Sasuke activated the Sharingan, and the two began to fight, with Naruto using his sword while Sasuke used the kunai. But because of the Sharingan, Sasuke had the upper hand in speed and strength. And when Naruto was given some time to breathe, he put his hands to the ground, and with that, he made a poof of smoke. And with that, Gamuto appeared, and seeing that Naruto was fighting Sasuke, he joined in as well, which allowed the playing field to get more balanced. But after a couple minutes, Naruto got kicked off the valley by Sasuke, and while Naruto was falling, Gamuto kept on fighting Sasuke, but with him being by himself, he was easily defeated. And after around 30 seconds of falling, Naruto made a shadow clone, and using that clone as footing, he jumped off of him, and he landed on the side of the valley. And once Naruto was ready, he began to run up the wall to try to get back to the fight. And while he was running, Naruto made around 7 Shadow clones. But while Naruto was running, Gamuto was on the ground. And when Sasuke saw this, he began to launch many fireballs at him. And after multiple hits, Gamuto got surrounded by smoke. And when the smoke was gone, he was gone as well, with him returned back to Mount Miyaboku. And before Naruto was able to get back up to the top, Sasuke took a deep breath. And once he was ready, he jumped off the side of the valley. And when he got to the same level as the Narutos, he released a fireball jutsu. And when the attack hit, all the Naruto clones got immediately destroyed, while the real one got hit and began to fall, with him landing somewhat safely on the water below, with Sasuke landing in front of him a couple seconds later. Then once the two were ready, they ran at each other, with Naruto and Sasuke using a Rasengan and a Chidori. But because Naruto was damaged and tired, also because Sasuke's Sharingan, Sasuke was able to move out of the way of Naruto's attack, and he was able to impale Naruto right in the lung. And when Naruto got hit, the Rasengan disappeared. And when Sasuke pulled back his hand, Naruto sank into the water below. And believing that he killed Naruto, when Naruto disappeared into the water below, Sasuke began to feel a searing pain in his eyes. And after a couple seconds, it was gone, with him now having the third Tomo of Sharingan. Then after Sasuke was able to recompose himself, he began to walk away. But after taking a couple steps, the water began to move, with it becoming waves, with there being red chakra moving around. Then Naruto came back out of the water, with him creating a giant wave. And when Sasuke got a good look at Naruto, he saw that his eyes were red, and that his nails had become claws. Then after letting out a roar, Naruto ran at Sasuke, and the two began to fight again. And because Naruto is now powered up by the Nine Tails, Naruto is finally able to outspeed Sasuke, even though Sasuke had the quicker reaction time, making so the two are now finally equally matched. Then after a couple minutes of fighting, Naruto was finally able to punch Sasuke in the gut, making him go flying around 30 feet up. And when Sasuke made contact with the side of the valley, he made a crater. And when Sasuke got back up, the two decided to go for one final clash. So Sasuke let his curse mark spread across his whole body. And once it was spread enough, his whole body began to transform, with his skin turning purple, and now he has hand-like wings on his back. And while he was transforming, he put on his headband. And once he was done changing, he began to put lightning nature chakra into his hand. And after a couple seconds, he was able to make a Chidori. And while Sasuke was doing this, Naruto put all of his chakra into his hand, and he began to make a Rasengan, with him after a couple seconds making a beta version of the Big Ball Rasengan, with it being heavily unstable. And once the two are ready, the two go to attack, with Sasuke flying down at Naruto, and Naruto jumping at Sasuke with all of his strength. And when the two collided, Naruto decided to stop holding back, so he and Sasuke both collided, with Sasuke and Naruto both going for each other's chests, with the attack ending in an explosion, launching the two away. And when the two landed, both of them were knocked out, with them hours later being caught and taken back to the Leaf by Kakashi. And about a week after the mission, Naruto was in the hospital, while Sasuke was in prison for treason and abandonment. And while Naruto was in the hospital, Jiraiya came to Naruto and he told him that the Akatsuki are becoming a threat. And he asked Naruto if he'd be willing to go on a multi-year journey with him, and wanting to get even stronger so he can protect his comrades. Naruto accepts, and days later, Naruto and Jiraiya left for the 3-year journey, leading them to an altered plot of Shippuden. And that's where I'm going to leave the What If. I hope you enjoyed this whole series. It's been a lot of fun making this, and I hope to see you next time on Something Z.